Wednesday, April 19th, 2023. And today, on a segment on The View, they talked about this Major League Baseball player whose name I can't remember, whose wife was traveling on a United Airlines flight with their 2-year-old and 5-year-old children. She's 5 months pregnant. And he posted on Twitter a picture that she obviously took from across the aisle of her two kids and the mess of popcorn that was underneath them and beneath and behind them that they had made, and complaining that the flight attendant from United forced his wife, who's 5 months pregnant, to clean up the popcorn, and she was crying and she was humiliated. And that caused a huge firestorm on Twitter, uh, which was hilarious. Most of the people were dunking on him for being like, dude, clean up after your kids. Chrissy Teigen forwarded it and was like, oh man, this is the kind of thing that the Twitterverse like eats up. And she was right, it did. Mostly not on his side. But apparently United has contacted him and they're, squaring it away and dealing with it internally, whatever. But Whoopi, I was surprised, came out with everybody should have helped. Now, I'm going to disagree, and I'm on Sonny's side of this little argument that you got to take care of your own kids. That's part of the deal. You had them. It's not anyone else's responsibility to take care of your children. So if they make a mess, you should clean it up. The argument that they have a cleaning crew on a plane, they don't have a cleaning crew. It's not like a mass of people come in and wipe down those planes and between each flight. It is a minuscule little turnaround that's mostly done by flight attendants and a few ground crew that have to turn that plane around instantly. So if you want to complain about flights being late, don't make a mess on a plane. Less to clean up, less time between flights. But it does beg the question, because there's a little debate about whether or not the airline actually handed out the popcorn. And I don't know if they handed out the popcorn or if the popcorn was an available thing to purchase and she chose to purchase popcorn to give to her children. Because 2 years old and 5 years old and a bag or a box of popcorn is going to be a mess, no matter where you are. Plane, living room, movie theater, or wherever you are, that's going to make a mess. So if it was an active purchase and provided to the children by the mother, terrible idea, your fault, clean up the mess. If the airline gave popcorn to toddlers, it's kind of the airline's fault. You should know better. So I'm sort of on the fence here about where to place the blame, depending on how that popcorn got in the hands of those children. However, I am firmly in the camp that if you gave your child popcorn and they threw it around the plane, you should pick up the popcorn from the floor of that plane. You don't leave a giant mess behind you on a plane, behind you in a restaurant. Like kids throwing food, you know what? If the kid can't not do that, don't bring them to the restaurant. And I'm not a parent, but I feel like the rule should be, if the kid throws something off of their high chair or off of their plate, it never comes back to them. Like from the get-go, consequences. Cry your eyes out, little shit. No, you threw it on the ground. It's over. I don't even do that for my dog. You're the one who threw that thing over there. You go get it. Anyway, so I just didn't think, that whole idea, it takes a village. Sure, but strangers, all the strangers on the plane are not your village. I have a lot of issues with the behavior of people on flights. That it's not too much to just sit in your seat and do the fuck as you're told, because there's a lot going on, and everyone's a captive audience, and you need to mind your P's and Q's. So No, NFL or NBA, or what was it? Major League Baseball player's wife. There was a lot of people dunking on him, like, you put her in coach. You didn't hire any help. If she's overwhelmed, couldn't you give her some help? Which I think is kind of funny because it is. I mean, it is a strange flex from somebody with money to be like, you owe me uh, a clean floor that my children messed up. That's just not a good look. Um, and then today I saw another instance, different flight, don't know the airline, where a man was screaming, and I mean screaming, aggressively loud, trying to tell a baby to shut up. Apparently, there had been a baby that was crying. We don't see the beginning of this video, just some passengers' take on it after he'd started screaming and people were already on him to try to calm him down. And they told him, you're yelling, you have to stop yelling, sir. And he said, the baby's fucking yelling. And they said, but you're a man. It went on for quite a while. I mean, he was screaming. And I don't know how he wasn't in some way restrained. He was an African American man, so I would have expected that they would not have treated him very well. But they de-escalated the situation, and all they did was say, your concerns will be addressed when we land. And his concerns were addressed by a bunch of police officers who put him in handcuffs and took him away. Um, that's like a no-fly list kind of situation, and I feel like we need a universal no-fly list. You fuck up on a plane like that, you shouldn't be able to fly. Maybe for your first infraction, it's for 5 years. Maybe you can come back and see if you've learned your lesson. There was another one a couple weeks ago where a man, he was sitting in first class and they wouldn't serve him a gin and tonic. And I don't know what happened before. I don't know if he was abusive or if he was messy or what was going on. But by the time the video was rolling, they hadn't taken off yet, and the crew was already on the plane. The ones with the black gloves, which they're like, you're in trouble. And the pilot had already said, we're not going anywhere until you get off this plane, which means you're not going anywhere until you once the pilot has said, you're getting off the plane, you have to get off the plane. It won't go anywhere. Um, and he was, I didn't do anything wrong. What did I do wrong? What law did I break? What law did I break? And he was filming them and whatever. Somebody snatched his phone. He lost his shit, and he's like backing up into the window as far as he can in his first class seat. And they finally they pull his bags. His bags are off the plane, um, and he's just adamant. What law did I break? I didn't break any law. I know my rights. Blah blah blah. Um, big dumb overgrown frat boy white guy. And finally they just grab him and they start to pull him off of the plane. And of course he's wearing fucking sweatpants and he starts wailing. And I mean like high pitched screaming, wailing, no, no, you can't do this to me. He's crying. His shoe fell off at one point. Somebody came and like picked his shoe because it was on the plane, put it on the gangway. They filmed far enough into the gangway. They wrestled him to the ground. He was fighting and screaming and crying and no. And there was a guy who was on the ground crew and he's in his little vest, red beard, and he was just sort of looking down and a little bit away and kind of looking at the camera for a hot second. And the impish smirk on his face, it's like, you fucker are getting what you deserved. I don't know what he did, but he was denied a gin and tonic and pissed. Excuse me. I'm not denied a gin and tonic. This is vodka soda. Oh, that's better. So another example, when you're on the plane, just do what you're fucking told. It's a lot easier for everybody. Because I wish they really would make a universal do not fly list shared among the airlines. Right now, they only have them amongst their own system. I think there's a couple of major airlines that have decided to share their lists. I'm not sure about that. Excuse me, but it should be just a universal no-fly list. You behave like that, screaming at people. You assault a passenger or a crew member. Nope, you're not flying anymore. Get those people out of the fucking skies. The rest of us don't want to deal with them. We want to get on our flight. We want to, you know, put on our little earphones, read our little book, take our little naps, whatever we're going to do, eat our little snacks that don't smell bad, get where we're going, and get off. Like, just like, be a fucking adult and realize that you're in among other people. Maybe it's because most people don't deal with mass transit the way that city dwellers do. I think city dwellers do a lot better on flights, um, just because we're accustomed to being in public transit. Which, I mean, it's not public; it's private, and it's a, when the private organization says we are no longer serving you, we're no longer serving you. Um, but that leads me to the biggest dum dum of the day, Marjorie Taylor Greene, in I think a Judiciary Committee meeting. Uh, some cabinet member, secretary of I don't know what, uh, was being questioned by the Judiciary Committee, and it was, the Republicans just going, you know, you're letting in fentanyl, and this country's falling apart, and China's taking over, and the Democrats just sort of showing the Republican hypocrisy and um, uh, it, pointing out that the Republicans are all acting in bad faith. Many of them didn't even ask a single question of the cabinet member, but Marjorie Taylor Greene did after Eric Swalwell did a brilliant little thing about how we should be toning down um, uh, discriminatory language, and we should stop disparaging the police so that everybody's safer, blah blah blah. She said, well, that was an entertaining little story from a man who had a sexual relationship with a Chinese spy, and everybody knows it. And so instantly those words were stricken. Then she started to question the cabinet member, uh, and it was about China, like, you're letting China ruin our children, and she went on a whole tirade. Got in some sort of question. He started to reply to the question about that. That's not what our agenda is. This is what we're doing. And she goes, and she said, that's something about, like, that's not what you're doing. But then she said, you're a liar. You're not allowed to impugn the character of a witness when you're in a committee hearing. So instantly, uh, those words were, and I don't remember the terminology. They're not stricken from the record. They're taken down or something like that. But because she impugned the character of a witness, she was no longer allowed to speak for the rest of the meeting. And she asked for some sort of, like, uh, as they were discussing, she wasn't allowed to speak, and they were discussing what her penalty is and why, and explaining the rules to the committee, that she wasn't allowed to speak. She was like, excuse me, personal exemption or something like that. And somebody goes, that's not a thing. She's a dum dum and has no place in our federal government. Um, God, I hope the people of that little district in Georgia, um, rise up against her, because she is a moron. And she's officially today's dum dum of the day.